Hi, and welcome to part 4 of my Women Pharmacist Writers series, featuring an interview today with Dr. Maria Glukhovsky. This is Kim Newlove. I am the host of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. If you're new to the show, welcome. I am a pharmacist by training, but I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, and I provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. I was inspired by my nonverbal teenaged son with autism to combine my identity as a pharmacist with my speaking voice to launch my voiceover business, The Pharmacist's Voice, in 2017. My son Craig helped me realize the power of having a voice and using it. Each week, I alternate solo podcast episodes and interview shows. The solo shows are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. My interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you are inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 131, and you can find the show notes with links to anything mentioned today on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. You can also find my medical narration demo and a link to my online course, which is called Pronounce Drug Names Like a Pro, on my website. That website again is thepharmacistvoice.com. If you are interested in becoming a medical writer, you are going to love this Women Pharmacist Writers series. If you missed parts 1, 2, and 3 of this series, it's no problem. You'll still understand part 4 today. They're all independent interviews. But if you do want to hear parts 1, 2, and 3 of this series, check out the links to those episodes in the show notes, or you can find them on your favorite podcast player. They are episodes 125, 127, and 129 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Episode 125 features Dr. Janan Sarwar. Episode 127 features Dr. Brittany Hoffman-Eubanks. And episode 129 features Dr. Megan Freeland. Even if you're not interested in becoming a medical writer, this Women Pharmacist Writers series will still inspire you to use your voice. My guest today is Dr. Maria Glukhovsky. Maria has been a pharmacist for the past 12 years. She has also been a clinical educator across many disease states and a clinical instructor at a Doctor of Pharmacy program. She taught many diabetes and hypertension seminars to her patients over the years and has discovered everyone needs support and encouragement to succeed in their journey to better health. Maria is a prescription monograph reviewer and editor at a top telehealth company, PlushCare.com, a contributing author for PAX, which is at panicyandanxiety.org, and a contributing author to Thrive Global. She loves medical writing and contributing to projects that will impact others to make a difference. She recently published a children's book to promote mental health in children and their self-esteem. It's called Finny's Greatest Discovery. Maria prides herself in helping and supporting patients and everyone around her in any way she can, and fights to help them in any way she can, whether it's for the cost of their medication or the disease state they are facing. Maria has a passion for creating highest-in-class continuing medical education and touching and improving lives by educating healthcare providers, which ultimately results in delivering the best medical care to patients around the world. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Maria Glukhovsky. Hi, Maria. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. How are you?
Hi, so excited to be here. Super excited to be interviewed by the Queen of Podcast, and Happy New Year to everybody. I had to throw that in there.
Oh, thank you. That's too kind, too kind. And Happy New Year to you too, as we record this on January 7th, 2022.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, you are the fourth pharmacist that I'm interviewing in my Women Pharmacist Writers series, and welcome to the series.
Awesome. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, what I want to start with today is how did you get started in writing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just last month, I had quite a few pharmacists reach out to me that are probably unhappy where they are, or kind of just looking to make a switch. And I always say, don't underestimate the experience that you already have. It's little things that you wouldn't even think about, in pharmacy school, your presentations, your patient brochures, your patient monographs, and the meticulous detail and the ability to pay attention to detail and to write these programs and these drug monographs with doses and side effects and everything. So you already have this kind of basis underlying ability to write. And when I graduated pharmacy school, I dreamt of educating. So I started educational programs at retail level, classes, diabetes seminars, cardiovascular programs for women, osteoporosis, breast cancer awareness. And I just started writing presentations, brochures, things that I could print out and give to my patients, for women to monitor themselves for breast cancer, for cancer screenings, for hypertension, for sodium intake, for, exercise, diet, diabetes, and kind of just went on from there. And then I started to go into freelancing medical writing and to kind of pick up more clients and to write more educational resources for other people.
What I'm picturing is you graduate from college, you're a practicing pharmacist, and through practicing as a pharmacist, you find a great utility in creating your own materials. And then you went into freelancing. How does one get into freelance writing from your experience?
Actually, I wasn't even thinking about the time, but on LinkedIn, I was not such a big fan of social media, but I had a client reach out to me and said, "Hey, I'm working on this project. I need a pharmacist to write patient-friendly resources." And, I said, "Oh, well, I've been doing this for a long time. Why didn't I help you?" And I just started little brochures that they were able to put on their website. And then I realized that writing is such an amazing thing. And someone told me once that your pen is mighty. That was you. So, it's kind of a tool. Everything you write, people read, and it kind of educates them. It puts emotions out there. They imagine things. It can change their life. It has such a great power. And, I said, this is something I can use to talk about topics that are important to me, to bring awareness to bring attention to change lives, to touch lives. And I started to write about topics such as mental health. It really hurt me to hear that, pharmacists were up there on the list for mental health and they actually committed suicide. And just the thought of it made me sad and angry a little bit too, because it could have been a past coworker. It could have been a mom or a dad or anybody that I knew or worked with that actually, kind of took their own life. And I said, this is something I wanted to write about. So, I found people that were starting organizations and we got connected and they hired me to write about certain things and to kind of to bring attention to that.
Now, when you started into the freelance writing arena, would you say that you were still working as a pharmacist, or did you make the transition or the leap to freelance writer all at once?
So I was still working as a pharmacist, kind of to get my feet wet, to learn about this world that was very new to me. And you meet new people, you meet new contexts, you learn, you connect. And, I met super wonderful clients that gave me an opportunity kind of to realize my talent and the impact that it can have on lives with their platform as they hired me to work for them. And then I started to get feedback from people, started about writing about moms and mental health. And they said, thank you for bringing attention to it. No, not many people talk about it. It may not be a cool subject to write about or talk about. And I think the feedback kind of helped me push me on this journey to write about things and to continue educating on certain things. And my goal is always, if one person hears my story, if one person reads my story and has an impact on someone else's life or has an impact on their life, I feel like, my goal is accomplished.
Very nice. Very nice. It sounds like you made a lot of contacts and that's how you got your jobs. Some people go to those freelance sites like Fiverr, Freelancer, Upwork. I don't know all of them. Can you tell me, have you had experience with that? And if you have, do you recommend it or not?
So one of my very, very few clients was from Upwork. And I think from that client, they hired me offline. And through that client, they introduced me to two more clients. So I did kind of put my feet in every platform. I wouldn't say every platform, but I would say that one, and just kind of being more active online. And then through that, it led to other clients and other connections, and then kind of more work.
I see. So you almost started on those freelance sites and then traded up for clients who referred you. And then word of
Yes,
mouth was one of your ways of getting jobs then.
exactly. Precisely. Yeah.
All right. Very good. And after your freelance career got to a certain point, did you then stop working as a pharmacist? Because I know you've had some other jobs where writing has been your full time gig. So, how'd you make the transition from freelance to full time writer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the longest time, I wanted to kind of fully put my time and efforts into medical education, to put everything I saw as a pharmacist and put out there to help providers be the greatest providers, for them to also understand the patient's voice. So I remember pharmacy school, we heard about two-way decision making, for the patient not just to sit there and say, yep, yeah, I'll take this medication, I'll do exactly what you said. But now we are seeing in every medical education program two-way decision making. So the patient can listen and say, what are the best therapies for me? Is there anything else available? Is there another option that I can take, another therapy, or anything else I can do other than what you are telling me as a healthcare provider? So to have a two-way conversation. And I applied to position for medical education, and I started medical writing and editing for them, and to help create these programs that are going out to providers that they can watch and say, these are the best practice guidelines, these are the clinical guidelines. How can I incorporate it into my practice, and how can I give the best patient care I can to my patients? So that was my dream, kind of to combine everything that I learned as a pharmacist, as a writer, and to put out there to optimally, try to attempt to change and better medical care for patients, which I always say the patient could be my mom or my dad or me one day. So how would I want to be treated? Would I want to sit in the room and my provider just kind of say, here are your options and do it? Or would I want to have a voice and say, do I have a choice? Do I have an option? What are my options? Can we work on this together, kind of to come out with the best optimal plan for my condition?
What you're talking about sounds an awful lot like continuing medical education. Is that how you would classify it?
Exactly. So it's CME, continue medical education. So all of us that have a license, every 2 years, we have to get credits. So we want to be up to date. We want to keep abreast of the newest data, the newest clinical practice, the newest guidelines, to know that, this is the best drug therapy. This data has shown, to help improve a life, or to kind of prolong their life, or anything. So this is pretty much what it is, creating that medical education for providers that we need always to kind of get our license up to date, or our CE credits.
Gotcha. I know I do my CE. I bet you do too.
Yes, to keep my active license. Yes, yes.
What's your favorite CE to do? Because I know you create some, but I mean, what's your favorite as on the consumer end?
Yeah, to do. I love anything with hypertension or diabetes, because they do include lifestyle modification. So, in addition to therapy, what else can we do to really transform our lives? Whether it's exercise, or losing weight, or low sodium diet, little things that patients actually want to learn about, and providers. And I know a lot of practitioners, especially pharmacists, are going kind of towards that route. What can we do in additional to therapy to improve my disease state, to prolongate my life, to make my life better, to prevent me going on dialysis, to prevent me from getting a kidney transplant, to prevent from losing my toes that I've had patients and their fingers. What else can I do? And any program that I can see kind of in addition to drug therapy and the clinical updates and the data, what lifestyle modifications can we recommend to our patients to incorporate that easily can be incorporated into their everyday lives to make it better?
I gotcha. So you like actionable type
Yes,
CE. You can take
exactly.
it and go out and use it.
Precisely, exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah. I like a wide variety. Pharmacist letter has always been my favorite, but I recently chose not to continue subscribing to it. I ran out of time
Yeah.
to do all these CEs. So now my new favorite is just going to the annual conference of the annual meeting of the Ohio Pharmacists Association and getting the live CEs. I've been going to that conference for years, but they last year had in 2021, they had it online only, I believe. And I did every single one of them, and
Wow.
it was amazing. It was so cool. I could do them from my house, and here I am folding laundry, and I'm watching some CE. And
Oh, yeah.
the questions that I had to answer afterwards were very reasonable. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I appreciate you sharing what you like. And I like a variety. So I must say that I liked the annual meeting of the Ohio Pharmacists Association last
Awesome.
year.
And it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing because you come out kind of like in pharmacy school, you just had a big exam or lecture. You're learning the newest things. You're like, oh, I didn't know this was out. Oh, I didn't know this latest study showed this particular data. So it's so interesting. I felt like I started kind of pharmacy school again because you're always on your toes. You're always learning the newest of the newest data. So it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you like the research part of being a writer. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you are in a way, I think all pharmacists are investigators. When you have a question, the question comes to you, whatever practice setting, you go to the computer and the first thing you do, you're starting to research. You're trying to investigate what's the right dose? What's the drug interaction? Is this safe? Is this not safe? And you come up with an answer, right? Because everyone is
Hmm.
looking at you. You're the drug expert and you have to research and investigate to find that answer. So absolutely.
Cool. Rock on, girl.
Thank you.
That's great. So you transitioned into doing CME, and you have done a number of different projects or categories of writing. Could you tell me a little bit about those different categories and maybe what your favorite is?
Yeah, definitely one of my favorites. I had a client reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll give you the website, PAX to include, but he created this community for people with mental health issues and as a support. And he reached out to me kind of to write for the general population. And I always ask, obviously, representing the pharmacist, I said, could I have a little niche in there to write something for pharmacists? And he said, sure. So definitely mental health is one of my favorite things to write about, and kind of just to write out any advice that may help them, and definitely encourage somebody to reach for help, or if anyone sees someone struggling, whether it's your coworker at your local pharmacy or somebody's you're working with, they're struggling, just kind of encourage them to reach out. There's so many resources, and not to hold back, because I feel like as pharmacists we take care of everybody. We run around, we run ourselves down, sometimes working crazy shifts and just to help everybody. But I feel like we do a pretty bad job taking care of ourselves. And I feel like we put our mental health on the back burner until it's a problem. And so I think definitely mental health has been one of my passions to write about, because I feel like it's definitely something very, very important to talk about, and it's not talked about because we're taught and we're trained how to take care of everybody else. We're not trained how to take care of ourselves, and something is so important as mental health.
There's a little bit of a stigma that goes along with having a mental health issue, too. Would you agree with that?
As I'm reading, I think that's a thing that is holding people back to talk about it. But just asking someone if they need help, taking them out, just talking to somebody, confiding in somebody. It doesn't have to be a big thing, to make out of it. Just kind of saying, hey, I need to talk about something. And maybe that pharmacist has also gone through that issue, and just getting that advice or wisdom or support kind of helps that person, I think, definitely. And I think as a pharmacist, as I started out, and you're afraid of making a mistake and you want to be the best pharmacist that there is. And I love my mentors. I had a few preceptors that said, we all had these worries, we all went through this, and you're going to be okay. And I remember that. That's kind of like that encouraged me and motivated me, saying, hey, with every day you're going to be more experienced, and it's going to be great. And I think just kind of talking to somebody that went through something where that experience, especially another pharmacist, is huge.
One of the mental health issues that I personally suffer with is imposter syndrome, which some people would say is not a thing. But when I was going to pharmacy school, the 5-year bachelor's was still the what most people got. I would say probably 70% or more, definitely 50% or more. And I graduated in 2001. When I graduated, there was this little feeling that I don't know enough. How can I go out and get a job and work? And now I feel like pharmacists who are graduating right out of school here in 2021, 2022 are feeling like I don't know enough, therefore I have to do a residency and or a fellowship or you know, something after graduation. And I want to normalize that too. I mean, even with a 5-year bachelor's, I didn't feel like I knew enough, but once I got a job, I did know enough. And I'm just a BSP. I'm a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy grad, and I did fine. I've had lots of jobs, hospital, retail, uh, compounding, voiceover.
Yeah.
And you are enough. But I feel like almost the pharmacy as a whole profession has almost talked these young people into believing that they aren't enough unless they get this residency or this fellowship and additional training and all this alphabet soup after and all these board certifications after their name, all these initials. And I just want to say that, hey, anybody out there that's listening to this that doesn't have the initials after their last name, the BCPS or uh, any of those, it's okay. You can still be a good pharmacist, really. You don't need a residency either. And sometimes those feelings of like wanting to do whatever everybody else is doing, sometimes that it feeds that imposter syndrome, makes you feel like you're not enough. And I would love your thoughts on that too, Maria.
Yeah, I would like to second that and put an emphasis that you are enough. And even if you have 4 residencies, you are very well knowledgeable about that particular area. You are expert, but every month, every day, there's new data that comes out. So even the greatest physicians I know, you think you know everything, but next month the clinical guidelines completely change. So you're constantly learning. So again, I am putting a big emphasis. You are enough and you're constantly learning. And that's more than enough. You know, you're looking things up, you're educating yourselves. And that's more than enough that you're constantly learning every single day the newest things. And you're never not going to know everything. That's why we have specialty pharmacists. Everybody has their little niche or specialty. And even if you've done, I think, retail for 30 years, or even if you've done hospital for 30 years, there's new medicines that come out all the time, new data, new clinical guidelines, new everything. So you're never going to know everything. The best you can do is kind of learn, read, investigate, and educate yourself. And that is more than enough.
Yep, let it be enough. Absolutely. I like how you said it. Bravo. Yeah, and that's why we pharmacists have to trust other medical professionals who write these continuing education materials and these different guidelines. We have to trust that they're correct and they're written by somebody who knows what they're doing and they're put out by an organization that is supposed to put them out. You know, you want to learn about diabetes from the American Diabetes Association, or you want to learn about heart related issues or blood pressure related issues from the American Heart Association. I think we know as pharmacists where the good information is, and thank goodness people are putting it out because we need it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you don't know something, you always look it up. There's just so many resources to look things up. And that, I think, making yourself a great learner and continuous learner is the
Mhm.
best thing that you can do.
Right, right. Now, I know that you have a passion for writing about and learning about mental health issues. And I know that you have actually published a few different things on LinkedIn about suicide prevention. Is that right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
It was about mental health, and I contributed a few articles to Thrive Global. So, little things we can do to improve our mental health. It was for moms. It kind of tried to touch every little category because I think as individual groups, we all go through different challenges. So, definitely, I encourage people to kind of check that out and just reaching out. Like I always say, if one person is listening, reaching out to somebody you see is struggling, don't ever hold back. Just say, hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Encourage them because God forbid, like, you know, you hear this pharmacist has taken their own life. And I sometimes think to myself, what if I knew that person? What if I just said something? What if the person that they worked with reached out? They could have prevented them taking their own life. So I feel like as pharmacists, we should support each other and not hold back. You know, take that action, take that first step, just kind of see if you can support that person and see if you can help them in any way, just even talking about something.
You're right. Asking somebody if they're all right is a great place to start. That's your entry point. How you doing? Really?
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. There was a gentleman that came and talked to my son's class high school, at the high school level, and his name was Kevin Hines, I believe, and he is a suicide survivor. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. I can't remember what year. He's one of the few people who has ever survived the fall. And he said so many people passed him by on the bridge that day and nobody asked him how he was. And that would have made a huge difference for him. You know, if he could have probably just had somebody ask, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" It would have made a big difference.
Absolutely.
Maria, are you writing about veterans at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually working on an article. I came across somebody, a life actually, that he told me about something he's been going through. He's a younger guy. He has a family and PTSD from him serving. And I actually, a good friend of ours too, their good friend actually during COVID took their own lives, and he was pretty young. So it opened up my mind also to this very other vulnerable group of people that are suffering and are suffering even more, especially during COVID. And I think the suicide rates went up with that. So as I started researching more and reaching out to friends, it's something that encouraged me to write an article also about, to definitely, have a call to action with people. If you know a veteran, if you live near one, if you work with one, anywhere you meet one, kind of also just to reach out to them or do something nice, buy them a coffee, buy them a drink, buy it, just to see how they are, take them out, give them some time and just see how they're doing and see if you can reach out, because it definitely, if they don't have family or support, loneliness is something that they're dealing with. And, they're definitely in danger of also taking their own lives.
That is so hard to hear. Those who have served us have that issue. My dad is a combat veteran, and he was raised by a combat veteran from World War II. And I can only imagine just the series of trauma that both of them have experienced. And it is really hard to know the right thing to do, because I don't know if anybody listening to this has a combat veteran in their lives. They can be really tough people to love. I don't know if my dad's ever going to hear this, but he acts so tough. I mean, even his hugs are tough. He holds me a little bit at a distance and it's kind of stiff. But they need love too. Veterans need love too. They need to be seen, heard, and understood. And whenever you see somebody with one of those hats on in a coffee shop, I mean, Maria, what should we say to them?
That's a great question. My first response is, "Hey, how are you? We've seen the hat you're wearing. Thank you for everything you've done." And some people respond to it really well, and some say, "Thank you." They don't. Sometimes they may feel invisible, that not many people may realize or even thank them for their service or their sacrifice that they made. So I think just acknowledging them, saying hello, saying, "Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can I get this for you?" And they'll say, "No, you don't have to, but thank you." Just to acknowledge and let them know that we know the sacrifice that they made for us. And nobody, I think, will ever understand, as I start researching and talking to people, what they have sacrificed, what they continue to deal with on a daily basis. If they were in combat, if they had a traumatic experience, how it impacted them, how it impacted their family. And, sometimes it may explain how they act. And I don't think we can ever understand unless we were in that situation. So I think we should definitely be kinder, more patient, more lenient, and kind of, offer the support, as much support as we can offer to them.
Yes. And I like what you were saying, just talking to them, saying, "Hi, how are you? And thank you for your service." I have had some experience doing that. And usually the response I get from them is, "Thank you for your support." And I love that because that kind of tells me like they're acknowledging that we are supporting them, saying, like, we're praying for you when you're overseas fighting in wars. We are on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, all the days when veterans are recognized. We are thankful for what you do, and we recognize that you recognize our support.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that means a lot, because sometimes they say we feel unseen or forgotten. And I think that's a huge thing, that we can let them know that we are praying for them and worried for them and appreciate everything that they have done for us.
Yep, and especially on those holidays, you better believe that the whole country is thinking about them, especially on that day, that fabulous day we all get off on for Memorial Day or
And celebrating them.
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. My kids actually used to have this thing at their elementary school for Veterans Day every November 11th or close to it if it fell on a weekend, where they would invite veterans from the community over to the elementary school. And the kids learned all the songs for the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard. It was awesome. And their music teacher was actually in I want to say it was the Air National Guard locally here in Northwest Ohio. And I couldn't have been prouder. My dad would come out and my neighbor would come out and they would pass the mic and everybody would explain what branch of the military they were in. And it just gave us an opportunity to support them even as veterans and just take a moment to say, hey, we recognize your service. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. We just had one of those at the high school. My daughter performed in the chorus,
Cool.
and they had everyone stand up from every branch, which was
Yeah.
amazing. Like everybody just stood up and who served in what branch, and that was incredible.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's good. For anybody listening, though, if you see a gentleman or a lady wearing one of those hats that says, maybe which ship they were serving on in the Navy or which branch they were in, and maybe some of the different ranks on those hats, hopefully anybody that's listening knows what I'm talking about. Don't be shy. Go up and say, thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Now, I got to go back to a question that I asked a little while ago. I think I got distracted when I asked you what you're
Yeah,
passionate about writing about. What are
yes.
some of the different things that you have written? I know we talked about CME, but could you give me 3 or 4 other examples, please?
I would say mental health. Again, that's my biggest passion. Hypertension, diabetes, lifestyle modification, osteoporosis, breast cancer screening, medical education, pretty much all across therapeutic areas. And I just started writing last year for women, just kind of tips of how we can kind of improve our lives or put little things in our everyday lives to make it fun. And I put little things in, making a little ritual, kind of writing, drinking from a coffee cup that you love, or making a favorite snack or anything, or doing something really fun with your kids. And especially when during COVID happened, just little things like we didn't dress up, we didn't go to weddings, and we had a dress up party. So little things, kind of little tips. And then for this year, I plan to interview um, people of different backgrounds and different jobs, and to talk about mental health and resilience, what helps them, some in the most complex, most stressful fields, and to take their tips and things they do to kind of help them cope with the highest stressful job and situations to help somebody else.
Now, where did these get published?
Yeah. So for my clients, one of the organization is PAX, Thrive Global, contributing author. I'm not a big fan of social media, but on the few social media um, channels, and also at the Continuum Medical Education website, that all our programs that were published there.
Got it. And these presentations that are for healthcare providers, where do those get published? I'm just kind of curious if I've seen some of your work somewhere.
Yeah, sure. So the website is cmeoutfitters.com, and all the website shows all the presentations, and you'll see my name, like who makes the presentations.
Cool. Well, congratulations on having a successful career as a writer. And I know that just recently you stepped into the children's book writing arena. Can you tell me a little bit about the book that you wrote? What's it called and what's it about?
Yeah, awesome. So I feel like all the years that I've talked to moms at the pharmacy, and then after becoming a mom, I saw that there was common issues that kids were experiencing, kids were facing the problems. And for the longest time, I kind of had this idea of a story, and I must have rewritten it, I don't know how many times. And during COVID, when it just started, I got this email, and there was, from our school district, there was an adolescent that actually took their own life. And I read the email and I got really upset. And my daughter, she's like, "Mom, why are you so upset?" And I explained to her, and she said, "Mom, we can't wait for our story, we got to publish it now." And I said, "It's not ready. I'm like rewriting it, you're rewriting it, she's deciding the species, the characters, the locations." I said, "Mom, this is the time." And everything kind of just piled up. My counseling sessions with mothers, with children. I used to do poison control education with children with autism, and everybody just had underlying things. Are they worthy? Are they enough? How are they made? They're different. Even as adults, I think as pharmacists, we're struggling with these issues, like you were mentioning, imposter syndrome. Do we know enough? Are we a great pharmacist? And my daughter said, this is it. It's time. And we interviewed quite a few publishers, and I came across one publisher and I said, this is who we're going to go with. And we just published our story. And, I wrote the story many times over and over, and it was complex. And my daughter said, Mom, kids are not going to understand it. So we got to break it down. So I had her help to break it down into a more kid-friendly language so children can understand. And I don't think anybody loves books more than me, and libraries. It's like my place. I'm such a nerd. And
I'm with you there, sister.
I love going to the library. And I think one of the coolest things is going to the library and having our book there. If it's not checked out, we just grab it off the shelf and read it. And it's been an amazing journey on just kind of writing this story. And I think one of the coolest things is getting pictures all over the world of children reading this story and saying, they love the story. And I feel like we read so many books with my kids, and I would finish the book and I would just instantly forget about it. And I wanted a story, something that had a powerful message that you could read over and over again. This discovery that, this little bird, had this little cheerleader all along, I put in the form of a mother saying, keep going. You are going to go through these trials. You're going to be bullied. If you're born different, you think you're different, you think you're not fitting in, and all these little places and opportunities for a caregiver, whether a child has a mom or dad or a caregiver, to go for it and open a conversation, saying, I love you, you're going to go through this. I know you're going to experience this, and give them opportunity to talk about these certain issues. And after they're done the story, they can read it again, and also have a little imprint on their little heart, little message to build them up. When they get older or become a pharmacist, whoever they become, they're going to still encounter these problems, and hopefully, for the message to stay with them for the rest of their life. So our book is called Finny's Greatest Discovery. And again, this is the discovery that, he goes on this little adventure and he finds out, and, talks about bullying, self-esteem, self-worth, all these problems that, kids encounter. And, I remember speaking to hundreds of moms and everything that their kids are going through. And then I became a mother and I kind of felt it. And we just put this book out there in the world. Super, super exciting and super proud of it.
Awesome. Congratulations on publishing your first children's book. And I got to tell you, the best part of it was the last page, last sentence for me. He was wonderfully made.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's probably the best, my favorite line in the whole book. You are wonderfully made, as an adult, as a child. And I think definitely the book idea originated years ago when I met a little boy, and he was born different. He was born with a disability, and we spent the summer together and we were at a party, and, he didn't have parents. He wasn't adopted, and he was from a different country. And we were just we were playing at the pool, and he just randomly says, people like me don't get adopted. Mm. And it just hit me so hard. And I literally took all my strength to hold back my tears. And I said, I'll be right back. And I literally had to walk away, hold back all my emotion. And I definitely felt feelings of anger. And who told this little special boy that people like him don't get adopted? He wasn't enough. And it just I just wanted to say, and just kind of scream, saying, you are enough. You are wonderfully made. You're special. You have a purpose. And, I came back and we started talking. And I think that's where the original idea, got kind of planted in my heart to tell kids all over the world. And that's why I chose an international publisher, for this book to reach kids all over the world, wherever they are, to know that they're wonderfully made, and not anyone to tell them otherwise.
Even though this is a children's book, Maria, I think it's got a great message for the grown-ups too.
Thank you. And I was hoping that as a grown-up, as a caregiver is reading the story or kind of following along with the story, that they understand that too, wherever point that they are in their lives.
Yes, I think pharmacists even need to read this book, because we all have our superpowers, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every one of us. Absolutely.
Yes. And the book again is called Finny's Greatest Discovery. And you, my dear, have a byline here, Dr. Maria Glukhovsky, PharmD, and your daughter is the co author, right?
She is. Yeah. She's 8 years old. She's 8.5. And she helped me kind of break down these complex topics in an easier way to tell the story to children, for children to understand, to know what they're going to encounter, what they are encountering, and put in a simple version. So she was definitely the best co-author.
Well, good. I understand you liked working with her so much on this first book that you are both writing a second book. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, super excited. It's also going to be a little adventure, and it's going to be a little story that's going to show the power of anything that we plant. And that thing that we plant is something good, a good seed, a good deed, and that can multiply, and the power of that. And for us to kind of evaluate our lives and see what power we have right now today, that we can do any little good action, any little anything we can do and plant and kind of multiply that, and make this world a better place for us and our kids.
That's a great story. I think grown-ups need to hear that one too. It's kind of like the children's sermon in church. It's for the kids, but I'm going to put up air quotes here. It's for the kids, but really the grown-ups get something out of it too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Kids, adults, everyone. I mean, I think we can all play a part. And I think if everybody does a little bit of something, it's going to be a huge something.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you lots of luck on this second book. And do you have perhaps some sort of a date by which you'd like to have it done?
Probably at least by beginning or end of summer. That's going to be our goal.
Okay. Very good. So there's hope that Santa might bring this book for Christmas next year. We got the first one for Christmas this year.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And thank you for everyone for the support, the pictures, the emails, everybody that has supported our book and kind of, send that little message to us, which meant a lot, meant the world to us.
Awesome. Now, I know that we have been talking about writing, and this is the Women Pharmacist Writers series. But I've got to say, you were talking about something that kind of checked a box of another way that you use your voice. You talked about working at a poison center for kids with autism. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So in our pharmacy, when I worked at the retail level, we had children come to the pharmacy, bust in, and to kind of visit the pharmacy, and we got to tell them things about it. So I created a poison control program because I came across anything I come across and it bothers me, and I feel like there's something that can be done about it. So I created these pictures and stickers and little brochures for children with autism to let them know how dangerous medicines are. And I would have a little scene that I played out with a technician or a pharmacist working with me. What happens if they find a pill on the floor? And some kids would say, oh, it's pink, so it must be a candy. And I said, I know it may look like a candy. And I would, show them little candy. And I would also show them a bottle with a pink pill. But I said, it may kill you. And it was like silence. And they didn't realize that. And I felt like every time 3 buses would come in, I would have 30 to 90 students that day. That's possibly 30 to 90 students I could prevent an accidental overdose,
Mhm.
because that's what happens. Most accidental overdoses happen. Someone, maybe grandmother, something's in the trash, and they say, "Oh, it's candy." And they put it in the mouth, and God forbid that kills them. So I create this little educational way to speak to them, to show them and call to action. Again, what do you do? And you have to call an adult. And they realized that. And I had the same students come in the next year. And when I asked the same question, they knew to say, you call an adult. If you see something, medicine, anything that looks like a candy, don't put it in your mouth. Make sure, you raise your hand, you knock on the door. If you're in the room by yourself, you call an adult and you say, hey, this is what I found.
Excellent messages. And I like the retention piece of that, asking them if they remember. Didn't you say they would come back?
Some were able to speak and some not. So especially on the next year when I was able to come back, I was able to show them, if I find something I would say, I would point to my mouth, or I would say no with a finger, and they were able to say no. And the people that the children who were able to communicate, they said no, and then they would say no, and they were able to again have that retention, and that was like the biggest thing. They remembered my message because I said no, like with both hands. I would show no, and with finger, and they knew, if you find something, do not put it in your mouth.
Well, thank you for that important work that you did. I have never heard of anybody else creating a program just for kids with autism like that. That's great.
Yeah, it's so important. And it came, I think it was a message that I got in a CE credit, and it was a crazy statistic in children and accidental overdoses. And I said, wow, what if they had more education at schools? And I hope to start actually something at my daughter's school and other schools. And I think it's so easy to implicate and people to do. And if a pharmacist is listening right now and you go to volunteer at your school, consider having a quick 30-minute lesson for the school, and just to educate kids and let them know, if you find something, what you should do, what the right action is.
Mm-hmm.
And we would give out a little sticker to the Poison Control Center that everybody would have on their fridge.
Yes, bravo. I have done that myself. So if you ever want to talk shop, you and me can talk about what I've done. And I usually go, I think the third full week of March, because that's Poison Prevention Week. And
Okay.
I would encourage any pharmacist out there to implement, like Maria's talking about, some sort of a volunteer effort, even if it's just once a year during Poison Prevention Week. Go in and talk to the kids about pretty poisons, which is kind of what you're
Yeah.
talking about. It looks like candy, but yet it's a medicine. And the poison control hotline, 1-800-222-1222. It's a kind of pet project, a passion of mine, poison prevention. So I just want to applaud you for using your voice for poisoning prevention. Excellent work.
Thank you. And it's so simple, and it's so important, and it doesn't take much time. And I feel like you could do it anywhere, at a clinic, anywhere. If you're doing a diabetes seminar, if you're holding a flu shot clinic, anywhere, it's something so simple that you can do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I encourage people to program that number into their phone and give it to their babysitters. There's all kinds of things that if we just share these ideas, we can all help, and we can all feel
Absolutely.
empowered to implement some sort of a poison prevention effort in our own neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to hold you accountable, girl. I'm going to check on you.
Sounds good. Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Well, as we wrap this up, is there anything else you'd like to share? Maybe some encouragement for pharmacists who want to become writers, or anything else?
Yeah. And I think whenever someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn and say, where do I start? Can I start? I've been out of pharmacy 15, 20 years, out of school. And I always say, never underestimate what you have done already. You have that experience, you have that knowledge, you're a continuous learner. Start somewhere. But don't think you mentioned imposter syndrome. Don't think you're not enough, or you are not able to do it. With learning experience, the right people to mentor you and guide you, you can definitely do it. And again, don't underestimate the knowledge and experience that you already had.
Well said. I second that. All right, Maria. Well, thank you so much for sharing how you use your voice as a woman pharmacist writer here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Take care.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to share a few final thoughts with you before I wrap this up. First, Maria said, don't underestimate the experience you already have. That really spoke to me. That's kind of what I'm doing. I agree 100% with that comment, and I'm just going to repeat it real quick. Don't underestimate the experience you already have. Maria also pointed out that pharmacists have a great foundation for becoming medical writers. I agree with that as well, and I, for one, am still interested in becoming a medical writer or a health content writer someday. Let's keep going with the final thoughts here. Finny's greatest discovery is on my bookshelf at home. If you have kids at home, I recommend you add this book to your collection, and remember that every good book, even a children's book, can lead to a conversation with your child, whether it's Finny's greatest discovery or something else. For example, at my house, we are big fans of Leo the Late Bloomer by Robert Kraus. Yeah, my kids are teenagers, but we still love that book. Links in the show notes. And finally, I applaud Maria for creating a poison prevention program, especially one for kids with autism. Much respect, that's amazing. I have an adult son with autism, and I know how important poisoning prevention education is to people with challenges and their caregivers. If you are interested in creating a poison prevention presentation, I would be happy to share my resources with you. I have done poison prevention education at an elementary school level, and I also include it at career days when I talk to high school students. Again, happy to share. If you don't want my help, that's totally fine. I would encourage you, however, to call the Poison Helpline and collaborate with your local poison center. They often have free resources if you're going to talk to a school, like stickers and magnets with the Poison Helpline number. Just call 1-800-222-1222 and talk to someone today. And on a personal note, I want you to take what I'm about to say to heart. Don't underestimate the value of just showing up to a school to give a presentation. Certainly schedule it with the staff, but show up. You could save a life. Let's wrap this up. I want to say one final thank you to Janan, Brittany, Megan, and Maria for being part of my Women Pharmacist Writers series. All 4 of these women pharmacist writers inspired me. I hope they inspired you. I learned a lot from everyone, and I truly enjoyed this series. This has been episode 131 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. Links to Dr. Maria Glukhovsky's LinkedIn profile, Instagram page, children's book, Finny's Greatest Discovery, and more are in the show notes. And one last thing, word of mouth is still a great way to share information. So if you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. And subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast in your favorite podcast player to get each new episode delivered to your smartphone every time a new episode comes out. Thank you for listening.